right, let's get started with just introductions so that we all know who each other are. I am Sue Mintonen. I am a program director here on Nantucket for NAMI. I focus on substance misuse and co-occurring disorders. Jackie, would you like to go next?
Jackie Lane, the executive director of NAMI Cape Cod and the Islands, and I cannot speak very well today. This is my first day back in the office after a week of a major sinus infection. So I'm kind of marginal, but I'm very happy to be here.
Suzanne?
Suzanne Franzuto, Program Assistant, NAMI on Nantucket.
Elise?
Elise Norton, Program Manager at the Nantucket Family Resource Center.
Molly?
Hey everyone, I'm Molly Fitzpatrick. I'm a clinical psychology doctoral student at William James College.
Welcome. Jackie Edwards.
Hi, I am a mom of a resident at the group home here on Nantucket.
Great. Allie?
Yes, hi, Allie Anderson, Chief Clinical Officer at Cosmos. Hello.
Heather?
Hi, Heather Francis. I am the town of Nantucket's public health nurse.
Debra?
Hi, I'm Deb Gailey, the Director of Special Services for the Nantucket Public Schools.
Margaretta?
Margaretta Andrews, the Executive Director of the Community Foundation for Nantucket.
Buddy?
Hi, I'm Buddy Baker-Smith. I'm the Area Director for the Department of Mental Health Southeast area that covers the Cape and Islands.
Great. I don't know your first name. Dee?
Debra. Yeah, there's the second Debra here, Debra Demuth. I'm the Interim Center and Site Director at the Department of Mental Health for Cape Cod and the Islands. Nice to meet everyone.
Chris?
Good afternoon. Chris Glowacki. I'm the Vice President of Strategy and Community Development at the hospital.
Ben?
Yes. Hi, I'm Bint Rustad, and I'm the aunt of one of the residents at 42 Fairgrounds House, and also a former social worker in the system with the Public Defender's Office in Boston a long time ago.
Jericho?
I am Jericho Mealy, Director of Health and Director of Human Services at for the town of Nantucket.
Amanda?
Try to steal Roberto's job real quick.
Hi, everybody. I'm Amanda, the Clinical Director at Fairwinds.
And Jean?
Hi, I'm Jean Miller. I'm the Program Director at the Community Foundation for Nantucket, and currently helping with the behavioral health leadership team from the assessment that was done this summer.
Thank you, everyone, and again, welcome. Jackie, do you want to take on the next?
There are a couple of things. Allie Anderson is on right now, I believe, and we always use this time to make any important announcements, and we have a joint announcement to make that we're pretty thrilled about. And as I said, my voice is not going to last very long, but perhaps there are two things that are going on, and they're very related to the fact of the community assessment that we're trying to get a better continuum of care and fill the gaps on Nantucket, and hopefully we're on our way. Allie, do you want to talk about what's going to happen very shortly?
Yes, we are very, very excited. So as Jackie said, we have two new things that we're rolling out. One is our partnership of space with NAMI. So we will have someone in our office regularly for Monday through Friday, correct, Jackie?
Yes.
Yes. So Monday through Friday, we will have someone in our office full time, answering the phones and then working with walk-ins, which is wonderful. And then we also have finally been able to hire someone with a signed contract, LICSW, that will be coming to the island to provide soap services to island residents for in-person groups. And that will be end of January, beginning of February when we'll start. We've got to do some training and onboarding. So we are very excited about him. He is a seasoned clinician, as I said, LICSW. So he will be there for 24 hours a week. He'll be there the full days, meeting with patients if they need extra additional time, and also helping with any walk-ins that may be coming in as well. So we are excited.
We'll be starting, we're going to, after this announcement, this is the first time the announcement's been made, we will be starting the marketing right after Thanksgiving. And also we have some coordinated educational programming that'll be running and going through the winter that will talk about addiction and the brain development, addiction, and also the comorbidity between mental health and addiction. So I hope this is a good step in the right direction, and that because it's a need that we need to fill. So thank you so much, Allie, for taking time to come in and give this announcement.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to kind of jump in on this meeting and kind of give this quick announcement. But there will be more to follow. And like I said, we are very excited about working with NAMI and having someone on the island to meet with people. So we think it's going to be really great. So thank you again.
All right, do we want to get to our speakers now? And if anyone else has announcements, we can do it at the end. I know some of you have some events coming up, and we have a Christmas tree and just a few things like that to talk about. I'm very, very pleased to have a friend of mine. I hope he's a friend and still considers me a friend.
Yeah.
Howard Baker Smith, better known as Buddy Baker Smith, who has been a long time employee of the Department of Mental Health and is now the regional director of the whole Southeast area, which of course includes Nantucket and the islands. Buddy has been a wonderful person for me to work with. He has always come to our police trainings, and we've done 6 or 7 of them, major ones on the Cape. And he's always very, not only a wealth of information, but he also takes questions and follows up on things. You know, when you sit in an office a little bit far away from the people that have their feet on the ground sometimes, your perception of what is going on is somewhat different sometimes than what we who are trying to work with the people on the ground think. And so Buddy has been a really good link, and he's bringing with him, and I have not met Debra before, but Debra Demuth, who is one step closer to the ground because she is in charge of the Cape and the islands for DMH. So what I'm asking is Buddy and Debra give kind of an overview of where we're at with DMH. And one of the reasons I thought this was so important, because as you know, some of us have been extremely involved in the community needs assessment, which has gone on for over 6 months now. And DMH never really came up in it. And VinFen really didn't either. And VinFen is contracted by DMH to do services. So that said to me that DMH has an extremely low profile on the island, and the island of Nantucket is part of Massachusetts, whether you like it or not, and you do pay taxes there. So I thought maybe we should try to remedy that, and so that's why we've decided to have this program. So Buddy, would you proceed?
Sure. And actually, Deborah, I'm thinking maybe let's start really local.
Okay.
You know, because
however you want to do it.
Yeah, because I think Deborah can really describe kind of what the system of care looks like on the Cape and islands and the services that DMH has, because I really think it's quite representative of what the DMH service system looks like statewide, and then maybe what I can do afterwards is this maybe kind of fill in some of the bigger circle around that. But I think we're hoping to keep our presentations pretty short because I think your questions will really drive where you're most interested in understanding or exploring about the department. So I think we want to kind of be brief about that. You know, we probably know more, but your questions will really kind of steer us to what's going to be most interesting and kind of useful for you.
Yeah, I think it'd be really helpful to start with giving you guys a sense of sort of the landscape of the state as a whole, and then sort of translate that into, you know, looking specifically at Nantucket and what is there currently, and you know, what are some of the pieces that are on the Cape or even in the state that we would be interested in, you know, building out further. And I will say right off the bat, what we want to do from DMH standpoint is really reinvigorate the case management services that we currently have on the Cape to Nantucket. It's been something that has not been, I think, as accessible as it could be. And I just want to put that right up front, that that's something that I have on top of my list, is for us to be able to get that message to Nantucket residents, you know, around what the process is to become eligible for services, and then eligible for something like our case management services. They are not specifically on the island, but we have case managers who are very able to travel over and work with individuals. So I just wanted to sort of set the stage with that. In terms of the Cape, we have for adult services, the ACCS teams, which folks may think of it as CBFS, which is what it was once called, but it's Adult Community Clinical Services. We have a vendor program through WinFen, and we have a state-run program as well. Between the two programs, there's about 15 different group living environments. So it serves a great deal of people. There's also an integrated team portion of that, which are people who are able to live more independently, but they still require those outreach services. So that's probably the largest part of the services on the Cape would fall under that umbrella. There's also a PACT program, which is for individuals who can live independently but require a more intensive wraparound service. And that is vended by WinFen. And that team is, again, like a very intensive team that has a psychiatrist, a nurse, recovery workers, therapists, people who can really wrap themselves around that client and serve whatever needs they may have, help them with transportation, you know, medical, a great deal of services. There's also, as I said, the case management team. On the Cape, we have 7 case managers and 3 case management supervisors. Each case manager has probably between 20 and 25 individuals on their caseload. They see their clients at least once a month, if not more. So these are clients who maybe need more help around connecting with benefits, helping with appointments, more traditional types of services, also connecting them with therapists and other community resources that we have. So we serve a great deal of people under that case management umbrella, and the case managers are out of the Hyannis site office, and they also work remotely. So they have space in Hyannis, but they're on the road. They're seeing people face to face. Even through COVID, they were able to keep up their face-to-face encounter numbers, and they were quite creative around how they were able to do that safely. So we were really proud of that team and what they were able to do. There's also a respite on the Cape in Hyannis that is run by FHR, and it's a great resource for people to help divert from going into a hospitalization. If somebody needs either a break from their group home, a break from, you know, whatever their living environment may be, where they're able to get some additional support from staff. Or the other side of that coin too is people who maybe have been in a hospitalization and they're coming back to the community, and this is sort of a soft landing for them to readjust and get back into the regular living environment. So that's a wonderful service. We have clubhouses on the Cape, and we also have a homeless outreach team on the Cape. We will newly have a new homeless contract called Safe Haven that's coming down the pike on the Cape as well. That's we're in the RFR process for that, but that's going to help serve some of our more challenging homeless clients who have difficulty being housed in the more traditional environments. And Safe Haven is something that is a very well recognized model across the country, and we're happy to be able to bring it to Hyannis. So that's sort of the speech of what we have, and I'm familiar with what the services are in Nantucket. And as I said, I think helping. I'd love to see a copy of your report. I haven't seen that yet, the needs report, and again, work together as best possible to understand how we can help you with the needs.
Deborah, can you just say a word about, we have a number of these services you described in the Cape and Islands site, cited on the we'll call it the mainland. I guess that's officially mainland. How, what are our abilities to make those kinds of services accessible to Nantucket residents? How do we try to manage that challenge now with some of these other kinds of services like respite, for example?
I think it's important for wherever the individual comes in contact with services, that they're aware of what our case management services are and how they can apply for those. If they already have DMH services, that's an easy process. If not, we get them started in doing a DMH application. And I'm just thinking even at NAMI on Nantucket, having maybe we could have somebody come out and train staff on how to do the application with people, to help sort of ease that process and have it be top of mind so people know that it's there and available.
We certainly can do that, and we have given out applications, not as much on Nantucket, but Deborah, there's an awful echo or something, and it's very difficult to hear you and understand you. Is there anything going on in the room you're in, or?
No, I'm able to hear you guys quite well. No, I only have, it's funny, I was just in a meeting earlier with Buddy. Was there any issue before, Buddy, with my?
No, actually, you were clearer in that venue than this for some reason. Yeah, it's kind of like you're underwater. So it's probably a lot to do with just it's our technology. It's our technology. Am I come across a little bit clearer?
You're fine.
All right. It has nothing to do with Deborah. It's the technology.
And I saw someone in the chat had asked for some contact information, names, and we can certainly provide that.
So certainly, let me just repeat two things that I think I heard Deborah say, just to make sure that was clear. And one, kind of relevant to the island. One is really an interest in improving access to case management services on the island. Our case managers do have the ability to travel. We do pay for their transportation to the island. So, other than the scheduling and things, kind of getting to the island is generally not a barrier for getting our staff out there. But I think I heard, Deborah say that this is clearly one thing already on the radar screen at the Cape and Island site about improving access to case management services on the island. And then the second thing that I heard, and just make sure it came to I'm only kind of being the mouthpiece to come across clearly, not to say it differently, but is a way to make the service authorization process, accessing the department easier, and that we have the ability to do training so that on island staff feel more confident or real clear about how to start that process with folks. We've found that that's actually elsewhere in the state, that's actually been a helpful thing that we do periodically. Sometimes we do it for clinics, private clinics. Sometimes we do it for substance abuse programs. It helps for folks who can facilitate and assist people applying for services, and then we take it from there. So those are two particular things I heard, recognizing this connection to the island. How about if I just kind of do just fill in a bigger circle around that. And so in the mental health system, I think it has all these elements that Debra has described. We contract for clubhouse services, the adult clinical care services, everything from supervised group living to supported housing, the PACT teams, the safe haven that's coming, all the things that she's described. The whole system of mental health care, though, is bigger than the department. And I think that's really important. It's probably one that you're familiar with in doing an assessment. I would just mention the other key thing that DMH provides is we are the provider of continuing care, the long-term hospitalization there that is not privately available. So Taunton State Hospital, Worcester, and those kinds of hospitals, long-term mental health psychiatric facilities are department run in the Commonwealth. But the Commonwealth delivers mental health services in two big ways. One is through the Department of Mental Health with these direct services that Debra's kind of described. But the other is through Mass Health and third-party payers. And I say Mass Health is the most significant because for so many of the folks that we work with, they would qualify for Medicare, Medicaid. And so the Mass Health system is really predominantly where one gets outpatient mental health services and medication administration, counseling. It's where acute hospitalization, most people get their acute hospitalization through this system of care in which the providers of the care get paid by submitting claims to payers like managed care organizations, accountable care organizations, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and things like that. So it's really important to recognize that the mental health system is these two big ways that it's organized that have to work together. So a lot of the, DMH clients on the Cape will get their outpatient services from, say, Duffy Center or from Nantucket Counseling. Those outpatient services that are being paid by Mass Health, and DMH does not contract for it. It doesn't have any oversight of the outpatient world, the outpatient clinics. So it's important to understand that, because a fully functioning and responsive mental health or behavioral health care system is going to be the department and this system of care through third-party payers. So I think that I wanted to kind of really flag that part because that's really important. Coming down the pike is probably the most significant change and improvement to that outpatient world that has occurred in the Commonwealth in many, many years. It's being described as the behavioral roadmap, but it is basically a reorganization of and packaging of outpatient services that combines, provides, the intention is to fund these certified mental health, community mental health centers, several of them which are regional in nature, that provide a single point of entry for behavioral health, substance use treatment. Also have in its package of services, crisis intervention services, and among other things. But it is the bundling of those so that there's just one portal in for urgent care and ongoing support and interventions around outpatient behavioral and substance use. That's a big change. And as I was speaking to Jackie, I think that's really worthy of your attention. And in December, I think, Jackie, at your December meeting, the Commissioner of Department of Mental Health is able to attend and really lay out the specifics of that, the timeline for that. And I think that would be really, really an important opportunity for you all to hear that the Commissioner describe this change and you all to kind of try to understand it more, because it is the most significant thing that will happen in outpatient services in the Commonwealth. So let me stop there. Are there questions about that? You know, neither Deborah or I have seen the community assessment. So, you know, maybe there are things in the community assessment that you want to kind of talk or question us about. We'd be happy to try to have a dialogue with you about that.
Hi, buddy. It's Chris Glowacki with Nantucket College Hospital. Curious as to whether you could direct us someplace to do some homework on that and learn more. Where would be the best place to get more information ahead of that December meeting?
I will. I'll take care of that. And should I get that to Jackie for dissemination? Is that the easiest way to do it?
Yeah, if you give it to me, then I'll send it out to the group.
Okay, because there are some materials that I think provide a good kind of overview of the whole thing. So Chris, I will get the stuff to Jackie.
That's great. Thank you.
Well, I think this is particularly interesting because it's sort of the same concept that we in the steering committee group have talked about as far as developing a continuum of care on the island. And it would be nice to have all of these things kind of fit together.
Buddy, I just had a quick question. Again, I'm from the public school district, the director of special services. And I've been working with one DMH caseworker on one worker assigned to 2 students. And I believe this individual is assigned to the students because they were hospitalized off island, and it was probably a regional thing for that reason. This gentleman who's been wonderful is out of Quincy. At what point would a case transition out of that office, understanding you want to maintain, again, a continuum of care with a particular caseworker, because one of the students is in district, one of the students is out of district, but I'm just trying to figure out my background just very quickly. I came from the Boston Public Schools where I frequently worked with DMH in my capacity there. But I'm just trying to figure out what this is here, because my secondary concern is obviously watching out for the kids that we have involved with DMH right now. But the other piece has to do with something that I was telling our Special Needs Advisory Council last night. We have a significant number of kids that are about to enter the 18 to 22-year-old range. And so much to the point that I put in my budget request for next year for having a transition specialist with the school district to work with the several state agencies. And whether or not that would be possible to hook up with someone from the Cape and Islands office as well. So I guess my first question, if you were able to answer it, is at what point would a case transition?
Right. Say from 766, what this eligibility to say DMH, is that what you're thinking?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the typically, most often it's done through the 688 process. So and you're familiar with it, that the Chapter 688 process is a process in which young people who have the entitlement for 766 services through schools, as they start to age out, which is either when they graduate from the public school, from the school, or turn 21 or 22, up at that age, either one, whichever happens first.
Yeah.
There is transition planning. If it's been identified that they may need supports beyond, beyond what the school systems have been providing and stuff. So that process actually kind of gets coordinated through the area office here. So when the school systems kind of initiate the 688 process, it gets assigned to an agency, be it depending on what the presentation of the individual might be. It might be DDS as the lead agency, or it might be DMH. The thing that's really key to this, and I think it's so hard for families, is the process really is driven by the families. You need to, because the first part of the process is just, we should figure out if the person is eligible for, say, in this case, DMH services. Because if they are, that answers the whole question of what's going to happen next. So you have to, so the first piece is apply for services and get determined. But the process is important because for anybody else in the world, that's what it is. You apply and we figure out if you meet our criteria for mental health services, and that's the answer. But for the 688 process, it's conceivable that someone might not be eligible for our services, might not meet our criteria, might not meet DDS criteria, but clearly need supports. And this process allows that to continue to move along until such point, if we haven't figured out who can support the individual, then the state has the authority to assign support. But I used to oversee that for a number of years. And one of the things that's so important about that process is the families drive it. So you have to keep doing your part to move through the systems, because it's all about getting that answer about should this person belong to one agency anyway. So sometimes families they get denied and they don't appeal, and then the process doesn't go anywhere. And then they do appeal. So anyway, probably a long.
Thank you for that. No, and that's kind of the premise of why we're trying to. I'm advocating for a transition specialist within the school district to keep pushing families to be able to know what they can access. Regarding my first question about a caseworker that works out of Quincy right now that works with the Nantucket kids, will that ever be transitioned?
Yeah, so we tend to align with the LEA, the school.
Yep.
Where a person is assigned, or sometimes with DCF involvement, we align with the DCF site. So there's, depending on the case, our case management assignment for a young person might be driven by the DCF location, so that improves coordination of care. But the department rethought its eligibility requirements and extended youth eligibility, child, youth, and family eligibility up to age 21. So we have this ability at some point to transition to our CYF services, we call them, anytime, in that age range. And our CYF and adult systems can actually coordinate and work together. They can blend services for that age group, which has been really helpful. And at some point, there's a decision whether an adult case manager ought to pick this up. So I think in your case, some of it's going to probably be driven a lot about where this individual may end up. They're going to stay on the island. We might take up the question that care coordination might be done best on the Cape at some point. But we're careful not to kind of like move that around a lot, because there are relationships in this. And so we tend to stay in it until the point of transition makes sense for the person. So I think the Quincy person would probably stay with it until we were starting to realize that there's a transition piece that is more obvious to us where the best relationship is going to be.
Thank you so much for that information. And I am wonderfully happy with the individual with whom we work. So I don't want to lose him because he's really advocated well for our two kiddos. But thank you so much for your detailed answer. I appreciate it.
Other
I guess
question?
I have another question, if that'd be okay. I was reading about the Mental Health ABC Act 2.0 this morning.
Yeah,
And I
that
don't know if
Senator Sierra is sponsoring.
Yeah, and this is probably just speculation, but one thing really caught my eye, which was increasing access to care in geographically isolated areas. I don't know if you've heard much about that. It says the bill would direct the Department of Mental Health to consider factors that may present barriers to care, such as travel distance, access to transportation, when contracting for services in geographically isolated and rural communities. And I wondered if you might speculate on what that might mean to us, if anything.
Well, and I don't know a lot about the details or how this will then going forward, when it, what will that mean in terms of implementation? But I think that's a really positive thing to recognize, because there are parts, and I would think the islands certainly qualify as, and I think that's been our challenge of scale. So, you want to provide a full range of services available to people in their communities. But then scale becomes a bit of an issue in smaller isolated communities like an island. So I think additional support in being able to afford to be able to work at a smaller scale, make some things available on an island would be great. Because I think I would think we would try to take advantage of that. So I'm thinking the islands, in that kind of language, I'm interpreting that as the islands certainly would be one of those areas that would fit in that kind of description of a community that we would want to expand mental health services to. And I just know personally, if we had a little more resources behind it, which this bill does bring resources, that's what's going to enable us to do it. Yeah.
Well, more to come, I guess. Thank you.
Yeah. I think it's probably something for your group to really pay attention to. Maybe even talk to Senator Sear about what was the intention of that language. And maybe even think about, so where is that expansion? What are those gaps, which I think is what you all are heavily engaged in.
I can add a little bit to that because this bill, the thing that was just passed by the Senate, and of course it still has to go through the House and be reconciled and the governor and all that stuff. But that is a continuation of what Senator Sear started doing, I think before COVID. And then the bill kind of language because everybody got all interested in COVID and that was a crisis. But a lot of the research for that, Chris, was done. I don't know if you were in the meeting. There was one meeting on Nantucket when he was doing these listening sessions, and he did a lot of them on the Cape. And of course, Senator Sear is from the Lower Cape, and that is just almost as bad as Nantucket as far as lack of services, except you don't have the boat ride in between, but it's a long ways from P-Town to Hyannis. And so there was a lot. I think the Cape and Islands are very much in his sight since, that's where he is from anyway. And we had a number of listening sessions on the Cape, and we have a committee meeting of the Lower Cape that he attends all the time, or his aides do. So I think, to answer your question, Chris, from my point of view and what the work that's been done with Senator Sear's office, I think it's very much on his mind. And I'll make sure that it stays there.
Yeah, I think one thing that, and we, just to be clear, the emergency services, that is a mass health service on the Cape. It used to be a state operated service. The Department of Mental Health used to provide that service on the Cape. I think it was what, 2016, 17, somewhere in that area. The Commonwealth privatized. So just so folks, if you've had any history with emergency services on the island at that point in time, the emergency services went to the Mass Behavioral Health Partnership that then contracts with Bay Cove. So just a clarity there if you have longer history on the island and those kinds of services.
Buddy, I think one of the things, and this, as you said, you haven't seen the community needs assessment report, and we should get that out to you. But one of the big problems from NAMI's point of view, because as you know, one of our big things is to try to connect people with the services they need. And as you know, people do for acute mental health care have to come off island, and often help them get into Cape Cod Healthcare or Pocasset or wherever. Hopefully it's Cape Cod Healthcare or Pocasset to keep them at least on the Cape. But then when they are discharged from an acute care unit, which both Cape Cod Hospital and Pocasset are, and they want to go home, they want to go back to the island, I feel like they're dropping into a black hole. Because there's so many things in the gap of care that aren't there. We have the one group home, which I'm sure somebody will bring that at some point, because we have two people that we've helped get into that group home, and they're very aware of those families. And there's a significant number of things that aren't as readily available as are on the Cape. And it's like, and again, I understand if you have 4 clients that need something, it's very hard to provide the same services as you're providing in the Boston area, where you have, I mean, you have to think about cost effectiveness, because we aren't spending unlimited budgets at all. So, but how can we, and I'm part of the advisory committee for this project, how can DMH perhaps help fill some of these gaps that you're going to find? I mean, when somebody says they're discharged from the hospital and they want to go back to Nantucket, I say, oh shit, because it's, what do I do with them? How do I get them the help they need? So can you see any way that?
What are some of the examples that you all are seeing in terms of, so someone returning from a hospitalization now going back to Nantucket?
I can share just from the Fairwinds perspective. We provide the majority of the outpatient therapy on the island and med management. And for a client, if they're a new client not known to us, then the hospitals are really good at reaching out to us to get them set up with a appointment right away. Like it's part of the discharge plan, or if they need other services like peer recovery coaching. And I know that Gosnold, who does crisis in the hospital, are really good about, if it's one of our clients that they send off island, then they will remind the facility that they're a client of Fairwinds, that to call the agency when they're getting ready to leave, so that we get them seen right away when they come back. So I feel like the inpatient hospitals do a pretty good job. You know, there have been some situations where moms have called and said, you know, my daughter is released and nothing was set up. And so we help expedite that right away. But we work closely with the crisis in the hospital, and they're great about like ongoing communication, so they know that Fairwinds is available and ready to help when needed.
Where do people live when they come out? That's a biggie.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of these clients have housing. So like they may stay with a family member if needed, or with friends, or, you know, they go back to their house. We had one gentleman that was sent off island and lost his housing. So his sister found him housing off island. So, I mean, housing is a huge issue, but most of these clients that are coming back all have places to live. They just need the med management, they need the counseling, and they need the other supports.
The ones I've been dealing with haven't had places to live, so that is an issue. And because we have one group home on the island, and until very recently, that was tied up with the same people for, I think, a number of years. And then one room opened up, and we have two people that NAMI had been dealing with are sharing that room because there was no place for them to live. And so, you know, that's one of the big issues is, and everybody knows, and as Amanda said, housing on the island is very, very tight. Another thing that I miss on the island, oftentimes when we have somebody from the Cape that comes out of acute care, we can immediately put them into the partial hospitalization program, or we can put them in Gosnold's door program. And that's something that we're trying to think that's considered a gap. We need that kind of intensive thing. And, you know, there are Fairwinds tries, the hospital tries, but we still have, it's more, the Cape isn't easy, as you know, and it's even more difficult when somebody returns to Nantucket, regardless of all of this. So those are some of the things that are going to come up. You'll see as gaps in the report. Just some physical, I mean, is there a chance to have another group home on the island ever? I know you do own Fairgrounds. I believe the running of it is contracted out to Vinfen, and we haven't talked about Vinfen at all either. Perhaps you could say something about Vinfen's role on the island as a subcontractor.
Yeah. Deborah, you want to speak to that?
You see if is my sound any better, or is it still, it's better now?
A little bit.
And I'm Amanda on here, who is the program director for Fairwinds, but we do contract that program with Vinfen. We have a great deal of communication with Amanda and her team, especially as someone is transitioning either from hospital or from our TRP. As I said earlier, our TRP is many times the stopping point to help set up those services on the island. And that's when we're doing that coordination with Amanda. And we have had a number of people who, we've had some movement. There was when I first got into the role, I was told there was not a lot of movement in that group home on Nantucket. But we have had some shifts and changes where some beds have opened, and we've been able to accommodate some other individuals on the island, and that has been quite helpful. But Amanda could probably speak a little bit more to her staff and her staff structure. They have a wonderful clinician there on the island who I speak to quite a bit in clinical conversations about the Nantucket clients. Did you want to add anything, Amanda?
I just wanted, Fairgrounds House is separate than Fairwinds.
Yes.
It used to be IS, but yeah. And I think the great thing about Fairgrounds House is, you know, they've supported so many people ongoing, but it's just for females. And now we have, thanks to NAMI, we have 2 males there, which is great, and to all of you. But definitely, you know, we need more supports around that. So that people have a place to stay and they can get the right help if needed, if being at home is not safe.
I know Gosnold had said earlier that they were opening a SOAP program. Is there any talk of a partial type program or you know, within that somehow? I know it's a program I forgot to mention that we do have here in Pocasset that is very useful for our clients to get day treatment and interventions. Just curious if that's anything that's been talked about.
I can answer that a bit because I worked with Gosnold. Actually, the SOAP program is the result of the cannabis tax money that from the town, and NAMI made the application for it. And then we collaborated with Gosnold, because obviously Gosnold, we're not clinicians and we don't pretend to be, but we do advocate, we market, and we educate. And we said, we will be your partner and we will dedicate X amount of this grant if you will provide the clinical services for this. And that's how the SOAP program came about. And we have enough money to start it and to continue it for a good part of the year. And then there's other grant money that is being applied for to continue it. When we talked about all this, we talked about the different programs that can be done as either a step down program or a preventative program, because SOAP can be either. And it was more because we were dealing with a lot of issues and not a huge amount of money, it's slightly under 100,000. Then we decided that SOAP would be the easiest to implement with being on an island and what we could do at the time. Our hope, and I've had several conversations with Ali, also with Richard Kukurow, who is the CEO and president of Gosnold, that we would hope to expand the SOAP into what would I call a more detailed program, which of course, obviously the type of program they have, partial hospitalization, which is for dual people, would be absolutely ideal to have on the island. We've got a ways to go and money to raise and things to prove before we can get there, but that's certainly in the conversation big time, and it's one I will not let drop.
I had a question. We've implemented a zero suicide initiative on the Cape that has involved both private providers and state operated folks. We were talking about the post-discharge. One of the things that has been, in looking at kind of the vulnerability or incident of suicide, that first appointment post-discharge from an inpatient unit is absolutely critical. So I think it's, we have to be really good at making sure there is an appointment to go to. But I think we're also like making sure somebody gets to that appointment or is kept that appointment is one of the things that, I think is important. I think we try to do a little bit of after post-discharge piece of this, but I don't know if Debra can speak a little bit to that. We have found that's a really important collaboration is not only making that appointment, but also following up with individuals to make sure they actually got to that appointment.
Yeah, and I believe too that kind of the new roadmap for behavioral health involves coming from the crisis team, where there's the point of contact of knowing who was hospitalized and being able to follow that person through when they come back, like a peer bridger kind of role, someone again who helps once they land back in their community, attend those appointments, make sure the appointments were made as they should be, because yeah, it is that first 30 days is known to be the most vulnerable time for the person. So that is part of our zero suicide efforts, and it is part of the roadmap. So it's going to be interesting to see how those supports can be added on to, the island and the Cape as well. But if people don't have that case management service or other DMH service, this is sort of another way to make sure everybody gets that, because everyone has to come through that crisis services, emergency services system. So it's a sort of the fail safe to make sure that they're being, held through that process of returning to the community. So it's going to be a good addition.
At
Debra?
time, yeah, Jackie.
How do your people deal with the fact, and we've had this a lot because we work a lot with families, where the person comes out and the person basically walks away from services and says, I don't need them, I don't want them. And there's not a lot under Massachusetts policy and law that one can do about that. And we find that, and of course it's very frustrating for families, and because they want the person to get the services and be stabilized and so how do your caseworkers deal with something like that? Do you think they're very good at trying to navigate people to the services? I suppose it depends on the individual too.
Yeah, certainly it's one of the biggest challenges and worries, right? Those are the cases that keep us up at night, that we're concerned about.
Me too.
Yeah, and we balance that with the dignity of risk, right? Where these are voluntary services, yet we all share, as a network, this concern. We do. Typically, one of the first things we do, if it's a person who we're quite concerned about from a risk standpoint, is we will alert our crisis services team, because we do have, from a HIPAA standpoint, we are able to let them know if we feel like, especially if it's somebody, again, in that first 30 days, look, this person just came out of a hospital stay, they're at high risk for suicidality, they're not returning our calls, here's the name, and that way their system is able to sort of, kind of cast a wider net than we can, really, in terms of if a family member calls in and says, my family member was just released from the hospital, I can't find them. They already have the name from us, so they can then take that action and have that background information. So that kind of communication, handoff communication, is probably one of the best tools we have in those situations.
Can I just jump in here for a second about the transition support? I work primarily with those that struggle with eating disorders, and I've had a number of students referred to me over the past couple of years who had a suicide attempt. One of the things that I've offered is, and I've been doing this for about 25 years, I offer, and these are all pro bono, so no fees are attached to it, but I offer transition scholarships. Sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's 2 weeks, sometimes it's 4 weeks. And so we talked about, or all of you were talking about, the importance of transition. And I found if they do have that support and I'm able to help connect them to these outpatient providers and they get at least a couple sessions in place, then they end up obviously doing much better. And so I don't know if this is helpful to the group, but in May, I'm going to be offering, I don't know how often, but a transition group just for those on the Cape and Islands who are in that transition period. It will be an in-person group, probably the 16 to 24 age group. And that will be in Falmouth. I live in Falmouth part-time. So when I'm not here, I'll come down just for the group. But that will be in May. So again, just some additional support for specifically that eating disorder population.
Well, that's a great thing to offer. Absolutely.
Thank you.
We, the island community over the years has been prone to clusters of suicides. When we were providing emergency services directly, we often would be called out to the island, do some outreach and education when a cluster kind of surfaced, to try to just get out ahead of it. How is the island's response? Are you still experience at times clusters of suicides? How do you come together and respond to that? Do you think, do you reach out to the department on those occasions? I'm not too aware of recent times, so I'm wondering if your strategy has changed in the community about how to effectively be responsive to clusters.
It's a little bit of a challenge. My entity is primarily just me, and I get about 125 new referrals per week from across the country. So there's only so much that I can do. But whenever the families reach out to me, I've actually worked with some teachers. I've treated some teachers who have eating disorders. So actually a lot of the referrals sometimes come from them. If Fairwinds reach out, I do what I can with my limited availability. But in terms of the individual families, it's working not just supporting the adolescents, of course, but also I work just as hard to get the families connected to support for themselves. The challenge is that there aren't really a lot of eating disorder experts on Nantucket. It's the same with Martha's Vineyard. So in those cases, if I can't do the work, then I'll get them connected to eating disorder experts who can kind of take over. But there have certainly been a number of suicide attempts since the pandemic started. And I probably had maybe 12 or 13 in the last 5 years, like from 2 years before the pandemic. It's just a very difficult population to work with, and with limited expertise on the island, it makes it a little bit more difficult. But obviously Fairwinds does a great job with all of those that I will send. If I send anyone there, they can certainly take care of those clients. But there's just been an uptick in those specific cases, so it's hard. And a lot of the families sometimes are just hesitant about reaching out and sharing what's going on. I think that's with any clinical issue, but with eating disorders, sometimes it's a little bit more, there's a lot more involved sometimes with those cases. But it's basically just getting my network involved and having my colleagues and friends take on those cases, even though they're not on Nantucket. So we do the best that we can, but I wish that we could do so much more.
I just wanted to say from Fairwind's perspective, we've definitely seen an influx in suicide ideation and attempts by our clients and people within the community. Thank goodness we have not had a cluster, but we're very aware of this. And so we are going around and doing QPR trainings to community members, like we're doing it to the schools, the Boys and Girls Club, we did it yesterday. We also are doing the signs of suicide at one of the schools. And we're going to hopefully be helping the high school with that as well when they do theirs. And then like if we have a high risk client, we flag them in our medical record system. So if for some reason, like they don't come to session and we're worried about them, we'll work with the police, like we'll call their emergency contact. And if not, work with the police to do a well-being check. Our staff is ingrained in them to do safety planning if they have this gut feeling with any client. So I think we're doing the best we can, but it's a collaboration effort. And when we do hear of something, we try to work with the other agencies and the police, and the EMTs to get the support to that family. And we have an urgent behavioral health clinic that's free of charge Monday to Friday, 5 to 6. So people utilize that.
And I just add to that, Amanda, I know as part of our Area Zero suicide training, we're doing an evidence-based practice called CAMS, which is really focused on suicidality and the drivers that lead someone to that.
All of our clinicians are trained in CAMS, thanks to all of you. So we utilize that too.
Which is a great resource.
We have 2 mental health first aid trainings coming up on the island too, which are the 8-hour trainings.
Do you all, and I know it's late, but do you all have a community response thing that when you have clusters? So I think, again, I'm thinking going back a few years, we might go out, we have gone out to the island, both Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket at different times when there's been clusters, and basically did this big outreach effort, joining with community. We went to bars and just sat in bars to try to engage men when there was a cluster of construction workers who had died by suicide. We showed up at schools, libraries and stuff. And is that kind of how it works now?
So Fairwinds, we had a group called the Post-Traumatic Stress Management that was based after the most recent cluster a couple of years ago.
Okay, yeah.
So we were doing those meetings. I think during the pandemic, it became more challenging for people because everyone was kind of struggling and just trying to do what they could. So it's something that now that we have our new executive director, Jason Bridges, that I want to talk to him about restarting again. And, the people that came to that was like crisis, the hospital.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. The police, the fire department. So.
It was a very effective community effort. I recall at the times we joined. We didn't lead it. We joined it. So that would be great. Good to know that the pieces are all still there. And I can imagine, that COVID would really kind of set that back a bit. But
Yeah. And I think you'll find when you read the behavioral health study, the whole crisis response on the island is definitely something that needs to be relooked at and kind of enhanced upon, because there's limited people responding. There's fear of burnout. The hospital sees clients that are commercially insured. Gosnold sees them, that, those with mass health and uninsured. So it gets complicated. And Fairwinds, we get a lot of calls for crisis and deal with that ongoing, even though we're not the ones, responding.
Right.
So it's definitely, you'll see in the behavioral health study, it's something that needs to be relooked at by all the players involved, and how we can better, be able to provide the responses to anyone regardless of insurance, and like not create burnout by the providers, and just get more support for the community.
Okay. Well, we've taken up a lot of your agenda because you haven't even talked about Christmas trees yet. So I'm wondering, Jack, if maybe Deborah and I, if this is a good time for us to kind of exit, so you can, if there is a little piece while some folks are around.
Well, I would say, does anyone else have any questions? I mean, you
Yes.
don't always get these two people right next to you here.
Yes, I do.
Uh-huh.
I have understood that in the past, there have been programs for the residents at the group home. And I wonder if there's any plan for that to be started up again.
What's your understanding of what stopped?
No idea.
Okay.
No idea. But there's nothing going on.
During the day.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I don't know, Deborah, if or it's something to look into.
I'll certainly take a look into that. Yes.
Yeah, because that we've always recognized that with Fairgrounds, the house, that given the limited resources on the island, that house would also need to provide some meaningful kind of day activity. So I think we've always recognized that had to be part of that particular house, because it just makes sense to do that. So
I'd be happy to look into that.
Look at that. Yeah. Okay.
Can I say something too? Because my nephew is also at the same place where Jackie Edwards' son is. And we're very grateful for DMH to have been able to arrange this and get these guys back to the island. But they're both, adults. They're both, I think they do need some type of an activity, or some type of, whether it's, maybe we're a little work on budgeting, maybe it's a little, just finding out where their strengths are, or where their weaknesses are, and if there's anything that they would want to participate in.
Right.
And that would be really helpful, I think, in general, because it's a very different house than when it was with just the women there. But I'm grateful for DMH for being able to make that move. And I just wanted to let you all know, because that was it was about a year and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything else before we let these two nice people go?
Well, I guess I could ask the question too, Jackie, what the policy is. I'm part of a church group here on the island that was founded in 1848, and we raise funds to help different areas of the community and beyond. And our first mission was to do some work at the group home. And we thought we got the approval. We started with a landscaper, and then that was kind of stopped. And then we got a quote from somebody to do, sand and paint the front entrance and whatnot. And we were told that that could not happen. So I just bring that up because we're willing to follow that through, but we don't know if we should be thinking about it or not.
Yeah, I don't know what was behind the responses that you got, and Deborah, maybe that's something you can kind of follow up on.
Yeah, I can follow up on that. That's
Yeah.
information for me, so I will certainly follow up on it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. I mean, I think community relationship is important. I think the real intention and thrust of community mental health services is really to integrate into the community, give people the opportunity to live and work and just like you or I do. So yeah, I'd hate to see that we couldn't have a relationship with the community in support of a program like that, but maybe Deborah can
come up with
understand that.
last spring, because Fairgrounds, 42 Fairgrounds has such a nice piece of property.
Yeah.
We thought maybe if a vegetable garden were started in the back, it might encourage participation, but that didn't get anywhere. So I guess we need the support.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Well, I'm sure that Buddy and Deborah will follow up on these things. And I also have said that I will share the community needs assessment report with them so they can sort of see where those gaps were identified. And it's not easy. The Cape isn't easy and the island is that much harder. So because of distance, but
the strength of the island has always been the community. And I think, maybe that probably comes from living on an island. The island, there's never been the question of why do we need to be accessible? Why do we need to make space for these people in our community? Sometimes we run into that off island, right? Why do these people, why does this program have to be here? Who are these people? Never encountered that in the island.
we're trying to get more of those programs on the island.
Yeah. But it speaks to the supportive community that many of you kind of represent here.
All right. Well, thank you so very much, Buddy, for your time. And I was pleased to meet you, Deborah. I think we will be in communication.
Yes, I look forward to it.
And we look very much forward to having Brooke Doyle, the commissioner, speak to us. And we will get the report out to people so that they will have an idea of what to ask and so on. So thank you again. And now we'll go back to Christmas trees and book clubs.
All right.
And all
That
kinds
sounds like fun too. That's great.
We're having fun right now.
Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving to you all.
Happy Thanksgiving to you too, and thank you.
Okay, Sue and Suzanne, and anyone else that has something. We have a couple of things. I know NAMI has a Christmas tree, and we have a fantastic location. We're in front of Nantucket Looms, right there on Main Street. And in my mind is totally gone. Sue emails me and asks me about a theme for a Christmas tree. And I said, well, I'm not really thinking about Christmas themes at the moment. I'm thinking about breathing. But but anyway, she mentioned, is there a way we could have the Behavioral Health Advisory Group involved in it anyway to make a real mental health presentation? So that's something that to put out there. I don't know if Sue or Suzanne's had any other thoughts about it. And then the other thing you mentioned was what, being part of a, was it a book fair?
One Book, One Island
One
is this March. The book is called The Midnight Librarian,
Which
which
is
I
a
have.
mental health
Yeah,
theme.
I haven't read it yet, but I guess I'll read it sooner than I was planning. But yeah, they've asked us and we've said yes to partnering or however they want to do it with using this book to have a discussion about mental health. So I'm hoping we'll figure out how to shape that.
So those are two projects that, we certainly want to be very inclusive with. And again, I think part of working together is one of NAMI's big goals as far as we go through this process of trying to develop a better continuum of care on the island. It's going to take a lot of collaboration, cooperation, and handing things off to each other. And these are two kind of fun projects, actually, that, help us get acquainted by working together. So I would love it if you would reach out to Sue if you want to be a part, or if you have somebody in your team that wants to be a part of either of these, or else we'll be reaching out to you.
Jericho, did you have?
How do I lower my hand now? There we go. Yeah, I was just curious when you said the behavioral health advisory group, you talking about like a presentation of the findings of like GPS or of the current like leadership group? I'm not.
So we call this group here meeting is the Behavioral Health Advisory Group. And the Behavioral Health Needs Assessment team is.
That's my brain crosswire. Sorry.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah, the
So,
behavioral health, this group has been meeting for quite a few years, and it only has become under NAMI. It has NAMI as its home for what, about 2.5 years now, maybe going on 3, because the group did not have a 501c3. And so they had no ability really to raise funding to do any of their projects. And we were asked if we would be interested in taking them under our umbrella, and we have. So if that makes it any clearer.
So it sounds to me like the tree should be some sort of theme of collaboration or helping each other helps everyone, or I don't know. I'm going to keep playing around with it, but totally open to suggestions.
I'm sure there's some creative people in this group, or they have creative people in their employ. That's or right. Friends.
I just don't want to do helping hands. That's all. I also wanted to you mentioned it earlier, Jackie, but this is sort of tied into two things. So mental health first aid is happening. Half of it will happen on December 6th, the other half on the 9th. Those are a Monday, Thursday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at 56 Center Street. We're doing this in collaboration with the community school, and I guess Kevin's doing it as Nantucket Police Department. So we're working with them. And we're excited to bring this to the community. I don't know if it hasn't happened in a couple of years, but we're hoping to do it once or twice this year. Well, in the next year.
Well, I understand when I got an email from Kevin that he's been asked to do it again, and I don't know by whom. So I think there's at least 2 of yours and another one coming up probably, in the next couple of months.
Awesome. That is great news. So when I have a link to register for that, I will share it out, but it's free. And I've taken it before. It's really valuable. And what inspired us to have it right now is that the ACT homelessness team is opening the warming place on December 13th. And we wanted our kind of crew chiefs to get prepared for not because it's dealing with the homeless, but just dealing with people in general. You never know where people are at around the holidays, can be a time where crisis comes up for folks. So we wanted our team at the warming place to have some background in case somebody shows up having a rough day. We wanted to give them some confidence to know how to help someone if they happen to be in crisis. So we're also, as Jericho and I are emailing here on the side, looking for volunteers. So if you think you know people who would be interested in helping out 1 or 2 mornings a week, we have 3-hour shifts, and I would welcome anyone interested in helping with that. We're feeding hot breakfast and lunch, and it's just a place to hang out and stay warm, charge your phone, read the paper, do a puzzle. We're trying to kind of have a little bit of everything so that any of our guests that come in can feel comfortable and either rest and relax or just chit chat with folks. And we're excited to have some resource for people in the community.
Great idea. Where is this going to be, Sue?
We're going to do it at the American Legion Hall.
Oh, great.
2 mornings a week. Yep.
Great.
Oh, Jackie, can I share the poster with you via email for your ladies union circle?
Please do.
Great. Would love to do that.
Any other announcements of events coming up? Fairwinds, anyone?
I got one. It's been my thing for the whole thing. I got those 5 first or second dose clinics left for COVID vaccine at the town thing. I just want to get that out so everyone knows.
Okay.
After December 19th, I do not know how you would go about getting a first dose of COVID vaccine. So if you know of anyone in your practices, anyone who does not have a first dose or needs to get vaccinated, please send it my way on Sundays up until the 19th of December. Last first aid clinic is going to be the 28th after Sunday after Thanksgiving.
And then from Fairwinds, we hired a part-time psych nurse practitioner. So she has started and she's going to start seeing clients the beginning of December and working alongside Dr. Maxwell and Dr. Kasha. And we also have a new peer recovery coach starting. And so he will be seeing clients that are contemplating recovery or in recovery and being able to be a support to them out in the community. So.
Great.
Awesome. And then I did want to say the Midnight Library book is an amazing book. I highly encourage you all to read it. It's the book that the island's chosen, and Fairwinds is going to partake in that discussion as well in March.
Great.
Well, we're getting down to the wire. Anyone else? Well, I thank you all for your attention and your time. I hope that you got some ideas. Please feel free to communicate issues and things that you heard DMH say what they do and what they maybe don't always get done on the island. I know it doesn't always happen even on the Cape. So again, we do have a direct line of communication, and quite frankly, holding people accountable is a very valuable thing when you're trying to get services for people. So I would like to say all of you have a safe and wonderful Thanksgiving holiday and come back healthy. And I certainly hope that you all attend to hear Brooke Doyle, who is the commissioner of the Department of Mental Health in Massachusetts, speak about plans that they have, and perhaps we can figure out how those plans may work in with the work we're trying to do on the island. So that's all I have.
Jackie, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Appreciate all this. This is terrific.
Yes, it is. It's very encouraging to hear everybody talking to each other and working together and trying to get things off the ground.
Well, we'll keep working at it, all of us, and, you know, it takes a lot of people to do it, and it takes a lot of collaboration and cooperation.
Surely does.
Well,
So-
thank you again. Happy Thanksgiving and get well.
I'll try. Okay, I'm leaving now.
Okay.
Sorry.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Hello.